In the dim glow of a corporate parking garage where the hum of luxury engines echoed off cold concrete walls, a lone figure emerged from the shadows. Marcus, a black single dad working as a janitor in one of the city's most prestigious tech firms, had spent years invisible among the gleaming towers of power. His calloused hands scrubbed floors that executives never noticed, his weary eyes witnessing the unspoken hierarchies that kept people like him at the bottom. But on this fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, something snapped in the air like a taut wire breaking. The CEO, Richard Harlan, a man whose name commanded boardrooms and whose decisions shaped fortunes, approached his sleek black sedan. Polished to perfection, it symbolized his untouchable status. Harlan's life was a meticulously orchestrated symphony of deals and dominance, far removed from the struggles of those who cleaned up after him. Yet, as he reached for the door handle, a voice shattered the silence. A raw, desperate shout from across the lot. "Don't get in the car." The words hung heavy, laced with urgency that made Harlan's blood run cold. It wasn't just a warning. It carried the weight of hidden knowledge, a secret buried deep within the company's underbelly. Marcus, the unassuming janitor who'd mopped these very spots for over a decade, stood there, his uniform stained with the day's labor, his face etched with fear and determination. Why would this man, whom Harlan had barely glanced at in passing, risk everything with such a bold interruption? What unseen danger lurked in the vehicle that only someone from the shadows could perceive? As Harlan froze, the garage seemed to close in, the distant city lights flickering like distant warnings. This moment would unravel threads of injustice woven into the fabric of the company, exposing fractures that ran deeper than corporate rivalries, fractures born of prejudice and overlooked humanity. The air thickened with anticipation, pulling the listener into a web of suspense where one man's cry could topple empires. What Harlan did next would not only shock the company but force a reckoning with the silent discriminations that had long festered in its halls. Marcus Thompson had always been a man of quiet resilience, navigating a world that seemed designed to push him to the margins. Born in a small southern town where opportunities for black families were as scarce as rain in a drought, he moved to the bustling metropolis seeking a better life for his young son, Jamal. Now 12, Jamal was the light in Marcus's otherwise dim existence, a bright-eyed boy with dreams that soared beyond the confines of their modest apartment. Marcus worked the night shift at Harlan Tech, a powerhouse in silicon innovation, where algorithms ruled and diversity was more slogan than reality. The company towered over the city like a monolith, its glass facade reflecting the ambitions of those inside. Harlan Tech prided itself on cutting-edge advancements, but beneath the veneer of progress lay a culture steeped in subtle exclusions. Marcus had started as a maintenance assistant, hoping his engineering degree from a community college would open doors. Yet, year after year, promotions passed him by. Whispers in the break rooms hinted at the reasons. Managers who favored cultural fits that mirrored their own pale reflections. Performance reviews tainted by biases that questioned his leadership presence. He endured microaggressions, the security guards who eyed him suspiciously despite his badge, the executives who assumed he couldn't understand complex discussions overheard while he emptied trash bins. His days blurred into a routine of invisibility. Mornings were for Jamal, packing lunches, walking him to school, instilling lessons of perseverance amid stories of ancestors who fought for civil rights. Evenings brought the grind, polishing executive suites where deals worth millions were sealed, all while Marcus pieced together side gigs to make ends meet. The racism wasn't always overt. It was in the overlooked applications, the casual jokes about affirmative action hires, the way his ideas for efficiency improvements were dismissed, as if they couldn't come from a janitor. Curiosity built as Marcus noticed anomalies in the garage. Late nights revealed hurried mechanics tinkering with Harlan's car, their faces unfamiliar and their actions furtive. He pieced together fragments, overheard conversations about corporate sabotage, rival firms planting seeds of destruction. But why the CEO's vehicle? Harlan himself was the enigma, A self-made tycoon from old money roots, known for his ruthless efficiency and a personal life shrouded in mystery. Rumors swirled of his past, including a brief relationship with a black woman during his college days, ended abruptly under family pressure. Marcus sensed a connection, a thread linking his own struggles to the man's opulent isolation. As tension simmered, Marcus's vigilance grew. He wasn't just cleaning. He was observing, learning the rhythms of power. Jamal, too, became part of this world indirectly, sometimes waiting in the lobby after school when childcare fell through. The boy's innocent questions about why Dad worked so hard yet stayed in the basement fueled Marcus's resolve. Little did he know, the car held more than mechanical flaws. It symbolized the barriers that kept men like him down. The stage was set for a confrontation that would expose the rot, building a slow burn of intrigue that made every shadow in the garage feel alive with possibility. The undercurrents of injustice at Harlan Tech had been brewing for years, a toxic brew that Marcus sipped daily without complaint but with growing awareness. It started subtly, in the way his shifts were extended without overtime pay, justified by team needs that never applied to his white counterparts. Marcus recalled his first week, when a supervisor pulled him aside saying his urban accent might confuse clients, code for something deeper, a dismissal of his heritage. He swallowed the insult, focusing on Jamal, who needed stability more than his father needed pride. As months turned to years, the discriminations piled up like uncollected garbage. Marcus applied for a facilities manager role, his resume boasting not only his degree but practical innovations he'd implemented quietly, like rerouting waste systems to save thousands in disposal costs. The interview panel, all white men in crisp suits, nodded politely but chose a less qualified internal candidate, one whose family ties to the board were an open secret. "It's about fit," they said, but Marcus knew the subtext. Fit meant blending in, not standing out with skin that absorbed light rather than reflected it. The company culture reinforced this divide. Diversity training sessions were mandatory but superficial, PowerPoint slides flashing statistics while real change lagged. Black employees clustered in support roles, their advancement capped by invisible ceilings. Marcus bonded with a few: Lena, the receptionist who endured patronizing comments about her braids, and Tyrone, the security guard stereotyped as intimidating despite his gentle nature. They shared stories over lukewarm coffee, tales of overlooked contributions, and casual slights that chipped away at dignity. One evening, while buffing the executive floor, Marcus overheard a heated argument in Harlan's office. The CEO's voice boomed, discussing a merger that could skyrocket the company's value. But there was strain. Mentions of threats from competitors unhappy with Harlan's aggressive tactics. Marcus paused, mop in hand, as fragments drifted through the door. Sabotage. Inside job. Make it look like an accident. His heart quickened. This wasn't just business. It smelled of danger. The garage became his observatory. Harlan's car, a custom electric model, was serviced irregularly by a team Marcus didn't recognize. He noticed tampered wires during a routine clean, sparks where there should be none. Drawing on his engineering knowledge, he traced it to a faulty brake system, potentially rigged to fail at high speeds. Who would do this? Rivals? Or internal dissenters perhaps fueled by resentment toward Harlan's leadership? As curiosity morphed into concern, Marcus's personal life intertwined. Jamal, curious about his father's work, snuck into the building one afternoon. The boy wandered the halls, his wide eyes taking in the opulence. An executive spotted him, assuming he was lost or worse, and roughly escorted him out, muttering about kids like that not belonging. The incident stung Marcus, a reminder of how racism extended even to innocence. He confronted the executive privately, but the response was dismissive, just keeping things professional. Tension escalated when Marcus discovered documents in the trash, shredded but partially intact, detailing Harlan's past. A paternity suit from 2 decades ago involving a black woman named Elena, dismissed under dubious circumstances. The details blurred, but the implications hit hard. Harlan had a child out there, abandoned due to societal pressures and family expectations that viewed interracial relationships as scandals. Could it be connected? Marcus dismissed the thought at first, but Jamal's birth date aligned eerily, and Elena was his late wife's name. No, a coincidence. His wife had passed from illness when Jamal was young, leaving Marcus to raise him alone. But doubts crept in, fueled by old photos and vague memories. The rising stakes pulled Marcus deeper. He began documenting anomalies, unusual access logs to the garage, anonymous emails warning of corporate espionage. The company, meanwhile, ramped up its discriminatory practices. A new policy favored legacy hires, code for nepotism that excluded minorities. Marcus faced a demotion threat after questioning it, his supervisor citing attitude issues. The emotional toll mounted. Nights found him pacing, worrying for Jamal's future in a world that mirrored his own struggles. Inspired by true events like the real-life corporate scandals where minority workers exposed corruption at great personal risk, Marcus's journey echoed historical fights against systemic racism. Think of the black whistleblowers in auto industries who revealed safety flaws only to face retaliation. Here, the tension built as Marcus pieced the puzzle. The car's sabotage was linked to a disgruntled executive, one who'd lost a promotion and harbored racist views, blaming diversity quotas for his setbacks. This man, Vernon, had rigged the vehicle aiming to eliminate Harlan and frame a minority employee. Marcus's surveillance intensified. He installed a discreet camera from his toolkit, capturing Vernon tampering late at night. The footage was damning, but sharing it risked everything: his job, his safety, Jamal's well-being. Emotional stakes soared as Jamal fell ill, medical bills piling up without insurance perks reserved for higher-ups. Marcus's resolve hardened. This wasn't just about survival, but justice, exposing how racism enabled such plots by marginalizing those who could see the truth. Days blurred into a haze of paranoia. Harlan announced a high-profile event, planning to drive himself. Marcus knew the car would fail on the highway, a tragic accident covering Vernon's tracks. The injustice burned. Why did power protect the privileged while silencing the oppressed? Marcus confided in Lena, who urged caution, sharing her own stories of harassment. The bond strengthened his purpose, but fear gnawed. Retaliation could destroy his family. As the event approached, tension peaked. Marcus shadowed Vernon, overhearing confirmations of the plot. The emotional layers deepened. Flashbacks to his youth, facing police stops and job rejections due to race, mirroring Jamal's potential path. The company's facade cracked, revealing board members complicit in overlooking Vernon's bigotry for his results. Marcus's heart ached with the weight of generations, the silent scream of ancestors demanding change. In a pivotal moment, Marcus confronted Vernon in the shadows, not with words but observation, gathering evidence that could upend everything. The rising action crested toward inevitability, each revelation heightening the stakes, drawing the listener into a vortex of empathy and outrage. Would Marcus act or let the system claim another victim? The air thickened with the promise of confrontation, the garage a stage for reckoning. The evening of the event arrived like a storm front, heavy with unspoken threats. Harlan, impeccably dressed in his tailored suit, strode toward the garage, his mind on the merger that could cement his legacy. The car gleamed under fluorescent lights, a beacon of success oblivious to its hidden peril. Marcus, hidden in the alcove where cleaning supplies were stored, watched with bated breath. His pulse thundered, the culmination of weeks of silent vigilance now boiling to the surface. As Harlan's hand touched the door, time slowed. Marcus stepped forward, his janitor's uniform a stark contrast to the CEO's elegance. The shout erupted from deep within him, raw and unfiltered, a cry born of desperation and moral clarity. The words echoed off the walls, halting Harlan in his tracks. The CEO spun, his face a mask of confusion turning to alarm. In that instant, the power dynamic shattered, the invisible man demanding attention from the untouchable. Harlan demanded explanation, But Marcus, fueled by adrenaline, revealed the sabotage. He pulled out his phone, showing the footage of Vernon tampering with the brakes. The evidence was irrefutable. Wires cut, fluid lines compromised, designed to fail catastrophically. Harlan's shock deepened as Marcus explained the plot's roots in corporate resentment, laced with racism that allowed such hatred to fester unchecked. Vernon, confronted via the video, represented the company's blind spots, bigotry masquerading as ambition. The intensity peaked as security rushed in, alerted by the commotion. Vernon appeared, feigning innocence, but the footage played on, his actions laid bare. Harlan's world tilted. This wasn't just an attack on him, but an exposure of the rot within his empire. Marcus stood firm, his voice steady despite the fear, recounting years of discrimination that silenced voices like his. The climax surged with emotional rawness. The janitor, once dismissed, now the savior, forcing the CEO to confront the human cost of his indifference. In the chaos, Harlan inspected the car himself, confirming the tampering. The near miss hit him viscerally, a brush with mortality that stripped